Hi, my name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. Jesus says this in the Gospel of John. He says this, listen carefully. I can just imagine him almost whispering this to the disciples. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In that one quotation of Jesus, there is the whole gospel. There's the whole purpose and mission of Jesus to the world. He's talking about the multiplication of the Christ from one to many. I mean, Jesus never came as an end unto himself. And it's interesting for us to reflect about the fact that he, in his crucifixion and in even his resurrection, he doesn't change anything in the world in itself by what he goes through. It's only its multiplication in our own lives. When Jesus talks about the fact that if we want to be followers of him, we must deny ourselves, pick up our own cross and follow after him, he is talking about the multiplication of the Christ from one to many. You know, it's interesting in the church today, we're celebrating Ascension a little early because it's the last of the stained glass windows. We've gone through the whole circuit of his life. We've finally come to the Ascension, the final story of the stained glass. And in that story, Jesus disappears into the heavens. And that wasn't particularly unusual thought in the ancient world. There's Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus and Pythagoras and Alexander the Great and other great men, always great men, who go to the heavens. Most of us go into Hades or into Sheol, into the gray lands. But great men, great spirits go to the heavens. The thought that Jesus would ascend to heaven is not remarkable at all in ancient thinking. But what is remarkable about this story is how he steps out of the way. Jesus steps out of the limelight, steps to the sidelines so that we as his followers can step forward and become the Christ in the world. And so much of Christianity has denied this basic truth of Jesus, that he steps aside so that we can step forward and be the Christ. And when the multiplication of the Christ from one to many, the world is changed. And the salvation of this whole world that we live in, and its darkness and violence and its destructive potential, rests in the hands of us who follow Jesus, who are willing to step forward and become the Christ like he did. And in fact, he says to us who are his followers that we'll do the same things he did, even greater things, because he goes to the Father to send the Spirit to us. He steps out of the way so that his Spirit can live within you and me. And I ask you to think carefully about how you live your life as a follower of Jesus, how you're willing to step forward, because it's so much easier to leave him on the pedestal, idolize him, celebrate him in such a way that we miss out on the significance of what he was about. I mean, John Wimber did this wonderful little video called Doing the Stuff, and he talks about the fact that when he went to church, he wanted to do the stuff of Jesus, but everybody at church was actually in his way and stopping him. And he mentioned the one guy, when are we going to do the stuff? And the guy says, you don't have to do the stuff, you just have to believe the stuff was done once, long ago. And there's the failure of the church right there. And as Wimber says, how ridiculous, how stupid. The whole point of Jesus is for you and I to step forward and become the Christ of the world and to bring about the miraculous manifestation of Spirit and healing and blessing and forgiveness and welcoming the unloved in our lives. It's amazing when you think about it that Jesus disappears so that his face might be found in each of us, and that the salvation of this world rests in our hands this day. It's not an act of egotism on our part to claim this. It's the very essence of being his disciple in the world. You are the Christ. I am the Christ. Divine love is our business this day. It manifests through the hands of service in you and in me.